Hello and welcome to PBS Updates, a new short series from the Oncology podcast where we break down the latest changes to Australia's pharmaceutical benefits scheme and what they mean for oncology practice. This is Rachael Babin from the Oncology Network, and I'm joined by Professor Craig Underhill. In this series, we take a quick look at the recent oncology and haematology updates, what's changed, which patients may benefit, and what clinicians should know. For more detail and ongoing coverage of cancer medicines, you can also visit oncologynetwork.com.au. So, if you want a fast, practical overview of the latest PBS developments, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
G'day, and welcome to PBS Updates. How are you, Rachael?
I'm very well. How are you, Professor Underhill?
Good, thank you. It's nice to sit down and talk about all things PBS. Thanks everybody who's been sending some feedback. There's been quite a lot since we last recorded about both the Oncology Journal Club podcast, or the OJC, and about this spin-off, the PBS Update. And a big shout out to Victoria Turner, who is a lived experience advocate. I was on a meeting with her today, the VCCC Alliance, and she, in the middle of the meeting, she goes, "Oh, Craig, really loving those podcasts." So that was nice. So thank you, Victoria.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you very much. We'll have a new OJC out after this one as well. So everybody keep your ears open.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, August update.
So we've got 3 drugs to talk about. And the first one is called vorasidenib. And that's being listed for the first time as a new treatment for people with IDH mutant astrocytomas and oligodendrogliomas. So this is a rare to low-grade brain cancer. And it was listed this month for the first time with people who had these susceptible mutations. So this drug was recently in the news because of the Scottish swimmer Archie Goodburn, who competed at the Commonwealth Games. So Archie has been living with an oligodendroglioma for some time, a couple of years. It's astonishing that he's still swimming at an elite level. He got a rousing reception when he walked out on the pool deck in the Commonwealth Games. And then afterwards he was interviewed and he spoke about his treatment with vorasidenib, about his advocacy for it, about the fact that brain cancer is now the leading cause of cancer death in people, I think he said under 40, it might be right, under 25, I can't remember. But we do have a link to the clip where he spoke about living with brain cancer, his advocacy for increasing the amount of research being done. It's one of the least funded cancers, and his advocacy for government to fund a brain tumour lead in the United Kingdom to kind of lead a coordinated approach to improve care in this tumour. It's very heart-wrenching. I'm trying not to tear up talking about it, actually. And I think if people would like to click on the link that we'll put in, it's certainly worth a watch. And well done, Archie. Got to admire someone who's able to overcome illness like that, be on treatment and swim at elite level.
And it's incredibly courageous, isn't it? And it is a very moving clip. This is a tumour type that affects young people and the peak of their productivity, their fertility. And as the health minister said, this is the first new treatment in 20 years. Yeah. So it's quite remarkable how he's been able to continue to compete to such a level. It's a beautiful story.
So about 135 Archies in Australia per year will receive this drug, putting it into kind of human context. The supporting evidence for this drug is the INDIGO trial, which was a randomized phase 3 multi-center international trial comparing vorasidenib with placebo in patients with residual or recurrent grade 2 IDH mutant gliomas who had not undergone previous treatment other than surgery. And that study, after a median follow-up of 14.2 months, showed a median progression-free survival of 27 months in the vorasidenib group versus 11.1 months in placebo group. So the hazard ratio of 0.39. So this is in the realm of, we've seen the adjuvant lung studies with superceltinib and with other targeted therapies with very wide separation of the curves. So again, if they want to click on the link to look at that study, you can see that the curves are quite impressive. And there you are. We should mention the toxicity, and people should be aware of that. It's a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, so it's not surprising to learn that side effects are mostly in the realm of fatigue, abnormal liver function tests. The dose reductions due to adverse events was 10% of patients in the treatment group on the trial, that the patients needed some form of treatment interruption at some stage. So we've talked before on the OGC about as chronic toxicities, low-grade chronic toxicities can be still affecting people's lives. So our patients need close management and supportive care to stay on treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that nuance, I think, with treatments like this, that it's delaying the other treatment options. So delays the more cytotoxic treatments, but obviously there are still side effects that need to be taken into account. Now, I will briefly mention, as you mentioned, the INDIGO study. I have a podcast coming out hopefully within the month with Professor Katie Peters, being interviewed by Professor Jim Whittle from Peter Mac. And Katie was one of the investigators on the trial, so it goes into a lot of detail all about that practical management. So for people who are treating
That's great.
These patients, that would be a really useful tool.
Well, that's timely. I'm wondering whether there was any Australian centres on that study or not. I don't think so. Published in the New England Journal in 2023. But there we are.
Yep.
Moving right along. This is now a listing for selpercatinib in the medullary thyroid cancer. So it's a rare cancer, and the majority of medullary thyroid cancers have RET mutation, and that's the target of this drug. So in fact, about close to 100% of hereditary medullary thyroid cancers associated with the MEN syndromes have the RET mutation, and of sporadic cases, which is about 3/4 of medullary thyroid cancer, about 50% have this acquired RET mutation. So that all up the vast majority of people with medullary thyroid cancers have this RET mutation. But in Australia, it's expected that there would only be something like 130 patients expected to receive this treatment. So the listing of this drug is based on the Libretto 531 study, phase 3 study comparing supercatinib as first-line therapy with either cabozantinib or vandetanib, and had showed a significant difference between selpercatinib with a median follow-up of 12 months. The progression-free survival was not reached. So in other words, more than half of patients hadn't relapsed. And in the control group was 16.8 months progression-free survival with a hazard ratio of 0.28. So again, quite a substantial difference and a lower risk of discontinuation of treatment, a lower risk of adverse events. In fact, I think vandetanib is now not recommended on some guidelines because of some cardiac toxicity issues. So there we are, a new treatment in this rare cancer expected to benefit 130 patients each 12 months. It's just, again, another example of how these targeted therapies, if you get the target right and get an active drug, it can benefit patients. It's a rare cancer, but it's fantastic to see that this is now being listed.
Yeah, it is wonderful. We've really noticed an increase in these listings for rare cancers, haven't we?
Exactly. And the third drug we want to talk about today is tafasitamab, which is an anti-CD19 monoclonal antibody. And this is for people with relapsed or refractory follicular lymphomas. It must be given in combination with rituximab and lenalidomide for a maximum of 12 months of treatment or until disease progression is the wording. About 600 people a year will benefit. The study behind this is called L-Mind, and this was a study in Lancet. This was a phase 3 double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trial. So the backbone of lenalidomide and rituximab is the standard treatment up until now for the relapsed or refractory follicular lymphomas. This was adding in the tafasitamab. Sorry, did I say that right? Tafasitamab. That starts off as a weekly IV infusion, and after months it becomes 3 weeks out of 4. So there's quite a lot of visits to day ward for patients. The adverse events were higher with the addition of the tafasitamab, mostly were around neutropenia and some low-grade diarrhea. There were no related deaths in the tafasitamab group. The benefit was a lower risk of progression, relapse, and death, with a median progression-free survival of 22 months versus 13.9 months in the patients who received lenalidomide, rituximab, and placebo, with a hazard ratio of 0.3. So again, less than half the risk of death is quite a big benefit. So in another incremental step forward in follicular low-grade lymphomas.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. So again, targeted therapies seems to be the wave of 2026 so far, not surprisingly. I think these are going to actually be disruptors. We might talk about this another day. I think these are going to be disruptors in that we have trial groups based on tumours and we have treatment serves based on tumours, but we can see more and more tumour agnostic listings, targeted therapies aimed at mutations. So are we going to have RET fusion mutation specialists in the future? It's an interesting thing to think about how we're going to manage all that.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating point, actually. It seems to be the conversation that we have most frequently these days is how the nature of practice is shifting away from a tumour type to tumour agnostic and targeted therapy. So I think we're living in interesting times.
We are. All right. Well, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Lovely to catch up as always. And just a quick shout out once again to industry. If you have any compassionate access schemes that you'd like us to share, please let us know. This is a good vehicle for us to share that information with the community. And you can check out the industry spotlight section on oncologynetwork.com.au for editorial and for more information on changes around drug listings.
Thank you very much, Rachael. We'll talk again soon.
Please don't take what we say at face value. Please do your own research, do your own due diligence, check the drug indication, be across the efficacy and toxicity data, discuss it with your patients before embarking on prescribing any of these bloody difficult to say drugs.
That's all for this episode of PBS Updates. For more information on the listings we discussed and for ongoing coverage of cancer medicines, visit oncologynetwork.com.au, where you'll find news, analysis and resources for oncology professionals. If you're working in industry and have details of compassionate access schemes or upcoming PBS changes you'd like us to share with the oncology community, feel free to get in touch. And don't forget to check out the Oncology Journal Club podcast if you'd like to hear more analysis and pearls of wisdom from Professor Craig Underhill. This podcast is proudly produced by the Oncology Network. Thanks for listening.